Armed activists stop a homeless encampment from being displaced in Dallas, Texas. Before we jump into this video, I actually want to talk to you guys real quick about an activist group that I want to do a shout out for. It's the Illahee Spirit Runners here. They are a indigenous rights and eco-activist group. They're very militant. They're very dedicated. I'm going to drop all their PayPal information if you want to give donations. Their links to their social media if you want to get involved and be a volunteer, be an activist. I really want people from this channel. The one thing I want from this channel is not to be fucking famous and get a lot of views and Patreon donations. But if you want to donate to Patreon, it's appreciated. But that's not the main purpose of doing this. The main purpose of this is to educate people and to motivate people to get involved. That's the core message we have here at Entitled Millennials, right? Get involved, okay? So I just want to share with you guys this activist group that I want to bring to your attention that I know is a great organization. They are dedicated revolutionaries. Go check them out. If you don't do anything else, go to social media, check them out. Give them a chance, look into them. And here at the end of the episode, I'm also going to touch more on this. I have a message from the war chief of the Illahee Spirit Runners I want to share with you guys. So yeah, this is a great organization. Go check it out after this video is over, and we'll talk more about it later towards the end. Hello guys, and welcome to another episode of Thinking Out Loud. Today we're going to be talking about one of our favorite topics, direct action. We've got this article right here for you from DallasNews.com. Says armed activists blocked Dallas workers from cleaning a homeless camp. That's unacceptable. So obviously this right here is an opinion article because, as I'm sure you already guessed, it's plenty acceptable in my opinion to show up armed to stop police and city workers from displacing, a gang of homeless people that are, the most vulnerable and desperate amongst our society. I'm totally okay with showing up with a few guns and stopping these assholes from moving around under the pretext of cleaning the camp, quote unquote. So like I said, obviously this is an opinion article. I was digging through a few other articles, trying to find maybe a better one. But I decided to go with the opinion article here because we can pick at, this shit lib's fucking, arguments a little bit along the way as well. So without further ado, let's jump right in the article here. As it says, armed activists block Dallas workers from cleaning a homeless camp. That's unacceptable. With the subtext, this is not how we do things in this country. I beg to differ, but I know they like that narrative, don't they? Let's see here. Got the photo here. It says Gary Mitchell left speaks with a member of the Elm Folk John Brown Gun Club at a homeless encampment under a portion of I-45 in Dallas on Friday, July 22nd of 2022. Jumping into the reading here, guys, says last week, a group of about 40 activists used their bodies and cars to block city officials from cleaning the site of a homeless encampment under Interstate 45 in South Dallas. Some of them carried rifles. Then, on Monday, activists showed up again, even though there weren't any city officials around. At least one man with a long gun could be seen from the street. Okay, so before we get deeper into this reading here, I just want to touch on, in this article, they're talking about cleaning these encampments, okay? So if you know anything, and they're saying that we weren't planning on moving them, we're just going to clean the encampment. And we'll read in here as well that, this is a fairly large encampment. The city had put a notice a week or two, I want to say, prior that they're going to come and clean the area and that they had to at least temporarily disperse, right? But apparently the homeless encampment got together some leaders from it and they, asked the city, or activists from the homeless encampment asked the city, hey, we need an extension. Because as you can see, obviously, in the image at the beginning of the article there's people that, may have disabilities, mobility issues, and, it takes time and effort to move a larger encampment. So they ask for an extension of time before they come and clean it up. So if you know anything about the homelessness epidemic in this country, the homelessness crisis in this country, the only answer city governments have generally had to it is to show up with police and show up with city workers and move them and fucking move them around and fucking moving them around like all they always do. They generally don't put them into housing. There's only so many shelters to go around. They don't do any of that. at least not on the scale that they should. Instead, they move them around, they come and they hose down the fucking pavement like there's some kind of filthy animal, right? So what happened here is these activists came and showed, they petitioned for an extension. I believe they got a weekend, like 3 days, have it done by the weekend. Obviously, that's not enough. So these activists showed up and tried to stop the cleaning. And if you've seen some of these cleanings, now every incident is different, but if you've seen some of these cleanings, a lot of what happens is they'll bring a bulldozer in, they'll destroy everybody's belongings, bag it up, throw it in the trash, hose it down with disinfectant, soap, water, all this type of shit, right? The thing about this, it sounds, they're just going to clean the area. It sounds really tame, right? But it amounts to material violence on people because you're displacing them. I mean, these people already don't have anywhere to fucking go. And you're going to make them uproot all their shit or maybe destroy their shit in the process or burn their tents. The scratch of what they have left in life is for material possessions. And they destroy it and they get rid of it. Or even if they don't destroy it and they have time to pack up and leave, you got to move around. As a homeless person, I don't think people realize how much fucking hard work it is to fucking move around. And the irony about these cleaning things is a lot of times they'll be like, we're coming to clean this little encampment, right? And people will gather up their shit or their shit will get destroyed because they refuse to leave because this is the closest thing to home they got. And all this shit will happen. They'll displace them and they'll move right across the fucking street and wait till the cleaning's done. Then they'll move back over there and have to start from scratch, right? So that's what this is. That's what this cleaning is they're talking about. They try to give it this banal, like blasé, it's just cleaning. And why are these gun-wielding psychopaths showing up to stop this cleaning? They're showing up to stop this cleaning because it's just fucking harassment at this point, right? Let's get into the reading some more here, guys. It says the freedom to criticize our government is one of the most important rights enshrined by our nation's Constitution. But there is a line between protest and intimidation. Activists who physically interfered with the work of code enforcement officers should be investigated by police. It's clearly a scare tactic to bring a long gun to a protest against an encampment cleanup. And activists last week positioned themselves to prevent city workers from reaching the camp. Christine Crossley, the city's director of homeless solutions, told us that the city staff were alarmed by the presence of guns. City spokesman Catherine Sweller, I'm wondering if she's related at all to the Henry Sweller, right-wing Democrat out of Laredo. City spokeswoman Catherine Sweller added, the normalization of this behavior is making the work for city staffers and the city as a whole more dangerous. All right, guys, a few things here. Let's see. The freedom to criticize our government is one of the most important rights enshrined by our Constitution, but there's a line between protest and intimidation. Right. They don't want violence, and they think that these guns are a sign of violence, a sign of intimidation. Okay. This is in response to an endless fucking stream of violence against homeless people. Because in the first place, number one, having a system where anyone could be fucking homeless in the first place is violence. That is fucking violence. Evicting someone out of their house, oftentimes by gunpoint by the fucking sheriff or by fucking repo men or whatever the fuck, that was violence. I know you may not understand it living in your glass fucking tower, but that's fucking violence. Taking everything out of somebody's home and throwing it out on the street and throwing them out on the street, that's violence. Not having public sanitation or public restrooms available for homeless people, that's violence. You're forcing human beings to live in filth and fucking squalor. That's violence. Having a system where if you don't have money, you don't eat, that's violence. Having a system where you're homeless because of no fault of your fucking own, or even if maybe somehow was your own, mistakes that led you there, but having a system where there's no second chances to get back out on the street, that's fucking violence. This is violence. Being on the street is violence. You hear reports coming out of some of these homeless encampments or just a general throng to people living on the street. There's fucking medieval diseases Because guess what? We also have a for-profit medical system, so you can't go in and get treated. Or if you are able to go in and get treated, it's so overcrowded, or they turn a blind eye, or they don't give you the care you need because you're a quote-unquote filthy homeless person. These things are all violence. And on top of that violence, the fucking whipped cream cherry on top of that violence, is you're going to take the one area where they found some shelter under the bridge, and they found their tents, and you're going to fuck the tents up, you're going to destroy the little shit they have, and kick them the fuck out. Even if it's for a few hours a day to clean, you're going to displace them. It ain't enough you kick them out of their actual house or apartment. It ain't enough that they've lost everything they fucking own. It ain't enough that they're fucking addicted to drugs because they're desperate and afraid and sleeping on the goddamn concrete. None of that's enough violence. Now we got to show up and move them around. Move them fucking around. Make sure they know we're going to show up and clean it. Make sure that they know we think they're filthy fucking animals. It's sick. There's a line between protest and intimidation. What about all the intimidation you've put on these people to get them here in the fucking first place, right? On this little snippet, too, I want to touch on this. City spokesman Kathleen Sweller added, the normalization of this behavior is making the work for city staffers and city as a whole more dangerous. I like that. The normalization. They're talking about the normalization of showing up with a gun to defend people. Some of the worst off people, some of the poorest, some of the most mentally ill, some of the people most suffering with disabilities, be they in a wheelchair or some other bodily or a mental or intellectual disability. Showing up to defend them. The normalization of showing up with a gun to defend these people. What about the fucking normalization we've had of the homelessness? I talk about the violence. They're condemning the long guns, showing up a protest to defend these people because it condones violence. It's unacceptable line between protests, blah, blah, blah. And she talks here about the normalization of this type of behavior of showing up with a gun to defend people. What about the fucking normalization of homelessness? There are millions of human beings on the street in the United States. Talk about normalization. You drive down the fucking street in LA, dude, I went there, dude, you cannot fathom it. The Hoovervilles you saw in the Depression, and the Depression went on for 8-9 years or whatever, and it was horrible, and we show these images to show how bad it was. Dude, we've been having that for fucking decades now, and it's normal. You've got fucking rich yuppies walking down the street with their fucking $10 coffee to the parking garage where their fucking Mercedes is, and it's just homeless people. People, some of them not even intent, just laying in the gutter, filthy. And they're worried about the normalization of showing up with guns to defend these people, but they're not worried about the fucking normalization we've had for decades of this scale of homelessness, let alone homelessness in general. If that ain't a fucked up situation of priors, it's not like these people showed up with guns and started killing people, man. They showed up with the guns to show you, hey, we're not just going to lock your arms and sing Kumbaya to stop you from coming in here. We're going to use these guns if you try to displace some of the worst off people in our society. They've had enough. If anything should be normalized, it should be doing that. That's called community defense, my friend. That you know what that is? That's they're all butthurt about it. That's a definition of a well-armed militia. Is people in the community getting their guns and showing up to defend the people who can't defend themselves. That's the Second Amendment. But form a well-armed and organized militia. That's the actual words of the Second Amendment, right? But no, that's not what that means. The Second Amendment never means defending one's community. It means I can buy a gun at Walmart and then go kill 500 fucking kids in a school. Or shoot up a gay club. Or shoot up a movie theater. Or shoot up a church where black people go. That's your Second Amendment. They don't want this Second Amendment. It's fucking insane. Got some more reading here for you guys. It says, we cannot as a society tolerate people using weapons to frighten city employees who are merely trying to do their jobs. The city of Dallas gave camp residents advance notice that they would show up to clean the site. which is critical and time-consuming work necessary to make the camp safer and more sanitary for the people who live there. More importantly, the cleanups are part of a broader outreach program by the city, nonprofits, and other partners to lift up those stuck in persistent poverty. Since September, 971 people have been placed in homes through the Dallas Real-Time Rapid Rehousing Initiative. All right, so a few things here. We cannot, as a society, tolerate using weapons to frighten city employees. I mean, again, it goes back to what I was saying. But we can, tolerate them being on the street in the first place. We can't tolerate showing up with guns to defend them from being moved by city workers and police. But we can tolerate them being on the street. That's just fine. It's fine. And they talk here about, it's critical and time-consuming work necessary to make the camp safer and more sanitary for people who live there. Now, sometimes you go to homeless encampments and it's bad. There's a lot of trash. People are in dire straits. You ever been real depressed and you can't clean up your own house and it starts becoming a pigsty? Times that by 100 for some of these homeless encampments when people get real, real bad and depressed. But if you ever see homeless encampments, a lot of times you'll see that, but a lot of times you'll see that they're real clean and orderly. Because the people there are human beings that are, despite living in a tent, doing their best to live with fucking some level of human dignity, right? And some of the bigger encampments too, and I can't speak to this one, they have committees and activists and stuff that, have votes and elect people to kind of lead the homeless encampment. And, some of these folks do a real good job of keeping it cleaned up, keeping it orderly. They'll even recycle certain separate the trash from the recyclables, things like that. You'll see some of that in a lot of these bigger encampments, particularly the ones like you'll see a lot of times Walmart parking lots have been co-opted of a deal with the city government, church parking lots, things like that. But they try to make it out like you have to come and clean these camps. And like I said, we know what that sometimes entails. It entails police brutality and the destroying of the little that these people have left. I understand some people involved with this probably think they're doing an important service. But a more important service or a better policy would be to just leave them a fuck alone. And I mean, maybe there's an extenuating circumstance where the filth is really bad to where people are getting sick. And, sometimes these encampments get broken up because there is violence in them or the drug use is very bad. And maybe we can have a discussion about that. But even with that, my policy is still, these people are so low already. Just leave them the fuck alone. Instead of having them displace the whole camp with these city workers, have police show up and, however it works, put the memo out to them. And I've heard stories of this. If you ever watch the channel Invisible People, this fellow, he goes around everywhere in the country, even in Europe sometimes, kind of addressing the homelessness crisis and talking with people and getting their stories. But, like I said, some of these camps are better organized and they do the cleaning themselves. If you need the area to get clean, because hygiene, sanitation is important, put that memo out to the homeless camp. They have leaders in the homeless camp. Be like, hey, dude, you don't have to move, but you got to get this cleaned up. Okay. Or we're going to have to come in and do it. And it's going to be a whole fucking rigmarole. And we don't want that. Instead of doing that, instead of displacing these people, send the city workers in hand with the homeless people, clean it up without displacing and moving everything. You can dump sanitation fluid on the concrete. You can bring trash receptacles. You can bring porta potties. The homeless people are still human beings. They can do this themselves, especially if they have the resources to do it. You don't have to tear up the whole fucking camp and displace these people. Plain and simple. The other thing here in this section, too, is the 971 people have been placed in homes through the Dallas Real-Time Rapid Rehousing Initiative. We actually did video on this where we touched on this at least with Houston, I think it was. We did a video, PragerU's Answer the Homelessness Solution, Make It Illegal, where they were talking about enforcing draconian laws when it comes to homelessness, like make it a criminal offense and do things like this. But in that video, ironically, they actually talked about the difference in the homelessness in Seattle and Portland as compared to Houston. And Houston was doing a really great job, and I guess apparently it looks like Dallas is making some positive efforts as well. And I commend anybody involved with making that a reality, right? But they did this comparison. They showed how bad it was in Portland and Seattle because they weren't, and their argument was because they weren't enforcing the laws. They were allowing small theft. They were allowing people to just be on the street. And then they said in Dallas or in Houston, it was getting better because they had more stringent criminal offenses. Like they actually cracked down hard with policing on homelessness. But we dug into that a little bit and we read into it. The reason why the Houston homelessness problem was getting better in compared to these areas is because they were giving people housing. They were getting them doing things like this. It says since September, 971 people have been placed. They were just giving people homes. And actually, something might surprise you is if you look, really surprise you, the state with the least homelessness problem, or that's doing the most to take care of it, is Mississippi, which is so backwards in so many other ways, right? You know, we don't even need to get into that here. But they've been making serious strides with the homelessness situation because they just put people in housing. You know, they get them in an RV, they get them into a pinup house, they get them somewhere, an apartment. They build housing as well. So, you know, I just want to note, like, that's great that Dallas and Houston is doing this. We need more of that. It always needs to be more. It looks like they have a partnership with private entities and charities as well as the city government. And that's great, but you know what we'd really like to see is a federal program where we have hundreds of thousands of government workers going out every day, thousands and thousands of people going out and like getting these people in, not just a handful of workers here and there in every district, like hundreds, doctors, people with showers, food fucking on every corner for these people until they can get it figured out, get them into housing. But that's the thing here. This is the point I'm making. This is great that we got 971 people off the streets in September. It's fucking amazing. Now, I'd like to see the recidivism rates on that, who ends up back out on the street, what the policy's like. I don't know. I don't have the details, trying to make this a short video. But if you're doing this, stop worrying about cleaning the camps. Just leave the people the fuck alone. Please. I don't think people that are, you know, carrying this out understand. And the thing is, too, with these workers, it's like, you know, they're working people and you need a job. We all do things we don't want to do. We work for big corporations, whatever. It sucks dicks. Many dicks, it sucks. But if I don't care how much I need a job, I'm not going to do a job where it's to displace homeless people to quote unquote clean. You know, it's the same with like policing. Like, I get maybe wanting to be a police officer because you want to like stop rapes and domestic abuse and moitas and all that shit. You want to be a hero. You want to be fucking NCIS goth babe, right? But we all know that's not how it is. But I don't get justifying yourself when you like arrest people for fucking weed or something. Like, I don't get being a human being, even with the financial considerations of doing any kind of job that you have to turn your back on fucking humanity like this. You know what I'm saying? I just don't get it. All right, guys, let's keep going with the reading here. It says, in this case, there were no immediate plans by the city to shut down the camp, according to city officials. City Hall's overarching strategy involves proactively helping the people at the encampments with housing and resources and eventually removing the camps. The most vulnerable in our city deserve more than a patch of dirt under a bridge. It's inhumane to allow the encampments to continue indefinitely, and we are glad our city wants to address this problem in a productive way. But displacing them is not productive. I'm going to fucking die on this hill. It's intolerable for citizens to respond to policy decisions they don't like by bringing rifles to a protest, which hints at the possibility of violence and physically blocking government workers from doing their job. You know, that all sounds great. You know, that's classic liberalism for you. The city's doing something. I'm glad our city wants to address this problem in a productive way. Our community members deserve more than a patch of dirt on the highway. Yeah. We all agree with that, but you don't need to be fucking displacing these people in the meantime. Okay, and as far as what they're doing to end the homelessness now, Houston and apparently Dallas are doing maybe a great deal more than some cities are, right? They're actually putting people in the housing. They're not just moving them across the fucking street, breaking up the encampments, criminalizing it, or what some cities do, they'll pile all the homeless people on a bus and ship them 2 towns down to be homeless, right? So this may be better, but this is classic liberalism. Like, at the end of the day, this ain't going to be enough. Like, yeah, you're going to get people into the housing. Okay, but where's the guarantee to make sure that they're not going to be homeless again? And now I'm sure they might have some programs, but at the end of the day, we're not going to permanently solve this issue until we have rent control, nationalized or municipalized housing, a real social safety net, better wages, and on and on and on. Okay? Homelessness itself isn't the problem. Okay? It's a symptom of the problem. And the problem is our system of capitalist appropriation, where for some fucking reason, housing, water, medical care, education, the most important fucking things to be a surviving, living, breathing human being are commodities. Okay? It's about the reason why you got homeless people is because cocksuckers want to make money off of rent. And landlords. And once you understand this, you begin to understand a little bit the point that Mao Zedong was making, going around and lynching the landlords. Dead Kennedys, let's lynch the landlord. Okay? So this is great. I don't want to like just sweep under the rug what's being done. This is a lot better than a lot of cities are doing, where the homelessness problem is growing and not being mitigated at all. And there's zero humane approach to it. But at the end of the day, it's temporary. Okay, it's temporary. Until you guarantee housing as a human goddamn right, putting people back into housing for a short period where if they lose their job or something else happens or medical bills or bankruptcy, they're right back out. It ain't going to do shit. It's temporary. All right? And I like this last little bit here at the end of this segment. It says, it's intolerable for citizens to respond to policy decisions they don't like by bringing rifles to a protest. It's intolerable to respond to government or corporate domination and oppression with self-defense. You can show up and do a parade and carry a sign and vote for Democrat little d or Republican little r, but you can't go out and actually defend yourself. You can just choose the fucking oppressors and hope they do something for it. I don't know how much of American history knowledge my audience here has, but if you look at American history, the only reason any of us have anything is because people showed up with guns and bricks and threw them at cops and shot at the military, okay, or did sabotage in the workplace. Now, the marches and the protests and the books and the writings and the voting, I guess, it did play a role. It agitates, it educates, it organizes, etc. But if you get down into the nitty-gritty of American history, the only time anything got done is because working people, oppressed people, gay people, women, black people, all the people, the people, the people that do the working people. The only reason anything got done is because they said, hey, we tried all the shit they said we could do. We could vote for Republican. We could vote for Democrat. They both fucking fucked us in the ass. We did this. We showed up in a protest. When we showed up in the protest, they beat our heads in with clubs and maced us in the goddamn face and shot at us. So, hey, if they're going to be violent to me, I'm going to get a gun. And then they got a gun. And if there's one thing the government and the corporations don't like, it's when poor people got guns, especially if they poor people of color. The government don't like that, okay? But they know that they don't want to make a bloodbath out of a situation if they can help it. So they try to do something. Say, They're pissed enough. They got the pitchforks and the torches. We better do something. And it may never be enough, obviously, like with the New Deal, we've seen that stripped away and things like that. But that's the only way we ever got anything. Okay? And this lady makes it out like it's un-American. First off, like I said with my comment on the Second Amendment, this is that well-organized militia, motherfucker. So that's what the Second Amendment's about. And two, this is the only way anything's ever got done. Plain and simple. Polishing off this reading here, guys, says, unfortunately, this kind of intimidation is aided by our state's misguided open carry law. Openly carrying long guns at protests and rallies is unnecessarily provocative and compromises public safety. This is not how we make our voices heard or how we get problems fixed in this country. Like I said, it sure as fuck is how we get problems fixed in this country. You can't tell me a single time in American history where working people overcame the obstacles of oppression and domination without violence. You can't. And that's not to say like I said, the nonviolence and shit didn't play a role. If you're not a violent person, do the nonviolent shit. But guess what? Some people is violent because people are violent against them. The system's violent against them. If you ever read Frantz Fanon's The Wretched of the Earth, he talks about, as leftists, not advocating for violence. We don't need to advocate for violence because the oppressed people are living in a violent system, in a violent culture. And when they live in a violent system, in a violent culture, they are naturally, instinctively going to respond to violence with violence. So let me tell you, if you don't want protesters and activists showing up with guns, if you don't want people getting violent because the system's violent against them, then make the system less violent. Okay? It has never, ever, ever been working people that instigated the violence. Working people's violence is always a result of state or corporate violence. Every single time. Because what do working people want? I'm a working person. I'll tell you what. Do you think I want to be doing this YouTube show and talking about this shit? No, I'm a fucking novelist and a writer. I want to be writing. I want to be painting. I want to work my little job and pay my bills and hold my daughter's hand and go on walks and do tea parties. I want to fuck my girlfriend. I want to do a garden. I want to live a fucking life. I want to see my family and friends. I want to see some music. I don't want to be violent. Never, ever has it been working people to instigate the violence. If working people are getting violent, no matter what the fuck you say, what narrative you push, it's you that started the fucking violence. That's a fact. But yeah, guys, that's all the reading I have here for you. I know I already shouted out the Ilahi Spirit Runners, but I wanted to dive into this organization that stood up for these homeless people, stood up for this homeless encampment. And it's funny. So the group that did this is the Puget Sound John Brown Gun Club. And the John Brown Gun Club has chapters of one form or another throughout the country. I imagine predominantly in urban centers, because that's where we see most left activism or left militias like this is in these urban centers. It's more Antifa-oriented culture, right? But I went and did some Google search on this and checked out their Twitter. I'm just going to share some of what they're about as well. Maybe look into them and have a few words about it. So I thought it was funny. I did the Google search here, right? Other than that little snippet at the beginning there, the first link that comes up is counterextremism.com. The John Brown Gun Club is a leftist gun rights group originally based in Kansas, and then goes in about John Brown. So I just find that funny. Just want to give you that little example of how these algorithms work, man. You know, you hear about John Brown Gun Club in the news or something, and you're like, oh, I want to look into that. And then the first thing is counterextremism.com, and they try to make it like it's some fucking evil thing, right? And presumably this organization is Marxist or anarchist and whatnot. And it's funny because in America, that's considered extreme. Like, that's an extreme or radical position to be an anarchist or communist. And I guess anywhere in the world, it's maybe more extreme than the baseline. Obviously, it's farther left or with other things further right? I guess that's just common sense. But like in the U.S., it's like really, what's the word I'm looking for? It's really like frowned upon, or you really if you go and you tell somebody that you're a communist, they give you a weird look, like, ooh, this guy's a loony. I mean, I get that like twice a day, and I'm sure some of you got it as well. But if you go anywhere else in the world, like the third world, or even in like developed countries in Europe, like if you say you're a communist, people are like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, yeah. Oh, I thought I was a communist once, but I'm not. It ain't this weird shit like it is here, like since we've had the Red Scare, right? So I just want to show you guys that quick. I thought that was funny. It comes up counterextremism.com. If that ain't American censorship, right? I don't know what is, right? But I hopped onto their Twitter account here. It says this is the specific chapter of the John Brown Gun Club. Not the other one that I showed you was Puget Sound. It says Elm Fork John Brown Gun Club, promoting and assisting marginalized communities and organizing community defense against white supremacists / fascism, not a militia, quote unquote. Okay, well, I'm sorry I called you guys a militia. No, if I didn't mean it like that, but got a tweet here from Elm Fork John Brown Gun Club. It says, we are the Elm Fork John Brown Gun Club in so-called Texas. We live on stolen Tawakonee, Comanche, and Caddo land, and through this lens we guide our mission of anti-colonial abolitionist principles. Together we outlay our points of unity. Universal liberation, anti-capitalism, abolitionism in regards to prison industrial complex, I imagine. Solidarity, community defense, egalitarianism, and direct action. So I guess there is a little bit of crossover between them and the Illahee in a sense there, although more than just being about a native rights organization. It's a little bit broader encompassing, I suppose. But I brought this up to you guys so you could check them out if you want. I don't know what sort of activists we have on here, or if that's the type of organization you'd like to go for, but you can check them out as well. But I'm also showing you because, you know, we like to have a little bit of hope on this show towards the end. And this is what gives me hope. Like, who among us could have imagined groups like this propping up at the frequency that they are 20 years ago in the 90s or the late 80s? You know what I mean? After the left was destroyed in this country, you know, we've been having to rebuild. And if you would have told me that these sort of groups are going to be around now when I was like 18 or 19, I would have said you're an idiot. I couldn't have believed it. You know, but this is what gives me a feeling of hope, is people getting together to defend the most vulnerable and taking serious risks to do so. Okay, it's a serious risk to show up to a protest or defense situation with a gun, because it can turn into a shootout. And that's fucking terrifying. I don't know if you've ever had guns pointed at you. I've never been shot at, but I've had guns pointed at me, and I don't like it. I do not like it. It is not a good time. You freak out inside. So, and if it ain't that, you can get arrested. Big time arrested. So, you know, kudos to these guys. And, you know, I just want to talk about how this is how shit gets done. You can go and protest on the Supreme Court steps all you want, but they don't give a shit. But you start showing up with a gun, or even if you don't want to show up with a gun, I understand if you're not a violent person, you're not a violent person. You know, on this channel, we do not condone violence, right? But any kind, direct action, building organizations for community defense like this, organize, direct action. If you're not violent, you can build a human wall, okay? Or you can park your cars in the highway, or you can barricade the doors of a plant that makes bombs, or I don't know. But if we don't put a wrench in the system and shut the system down, the system's gonna keep killing people, making people homeless, and letting them die of cancer and fuck all forever. Okay, so elections alone, voting alone, protesting out front of government buildings is not going to be enough. Those are important. They agitate, they educate, they are like propaganda. They're like, ooh, you know, when you go to protest, you get that fire in your tummy. But it's never going to be enough. You want shit done, you got to organize, you got to unionize, you got to do direct action. And sustained direct action. That's why we organize. We build the networks that make it so we can carry on a protracted people's war. So you want to get shit done, join an organization like the Elm Fork John... I can't fucking talk. Join an organization like the Elm Fork John Brown Gun Club. Join the Illahee Spirit Runners. Do something. Build a community. Rebuild your society. A group of human beings just being fucking human beings together anymore instead of atomizing their houses. That's a revolutionary act in and of itself, but take that to the next level. Build the community. Build the organization. Build the networks. Do the direct action. Do the direct action. Do the direct action. And we're real fetal and embryonic right now, but we're getting there, and this is a positive sign to me. And shout out to these guys, and shout out to Illahee Spirit Runners as well. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys. Just want to share this with you, show you an example of people getting organized and doing real shit to help vulnerable people, not just talking about it. I hope it gives you some hope, and I hope it gives you some motivation to get involved yourself. So before we sign off here, I want to give you a statement from the War Chief of the Illahee Spirit Runners. Says the Illahee Spirit Runners are the most active indigenous resistance group on Turtle Island, the true name of North America. We are working a combined program to form a pan-indigenous revolutionary government, construct an eco-village, conduct political education, and defend the land, the animals, and people from colonial incursion. If you're interested in fighting to end colonialism, and you have 4 hours a week to devote to the cause, we'd love to have you on board. Get in touch with us on Facebook to set up an orientation interview today. So that's the message from the Illahee Spirit Runners War Chief. And I've got, if you want to get involved, I'll put the link to their Facebook page here. I've got PayPal, Cash App, if you want to do donations to the Eco Village. I've got blogs. I've got everything. I got everything you need right here, and I'm going to put the links down in the bottom as well. So on this channel, we've talked a lot about getting involved and getting organized. And for me personally, it's difficult because I live in Mason City, Iowa, and I'm about 2 hours from fucking anywhere, right? And the people around here are real backwards, okay? But one of the things I know I can do is get the message out about organizations, okay? And the Illahee Spirit Runners, they're a great organization. So if indigenous rights, if activism is your thing, defending the land, being a water protector is what you want to do, if that's your issue, go to Facebook, send them a DM, get involved. They say right here, 4 hours. That's it. 4 hours a week of volunteer time. Okay, and I don't know. Maybe they have some, if you're closed off like I am, maybe you can do something online. I don't know. If you're real time constrained because you got kids and you got a fucking busy ass job, send a donation. Send them $1. Send them $5. Whatever you can. Okay, because we talk about it all this time, all the time on this channel. Get organized, get involved, help out. Here's your chance. Here's one organization, and from here on out, we're going to be doing this every single episode we can. I'm going to give you an organization that you can go check out, see if that's the one for you. All right, because we can talk the talk, guys, but if we ain't walking the walk, we ain't doing our job. Okay, we got to do more, right? But again, guys, that's all I have for you. Thanks for coming by and talking with me for a little bit. I'm glad I got to share this article with you. Like I said, it's one that gives me a lot of hope, makes me feel motivated. I hope it did the same for you. Drop a comment about what you think about this. Is this the sort of activism you like to see? Would you like to see more of it, this sort of militant action? Drop a comment. Let me know what you think about the homelessness epidemic. Tell me your story if you've ever been homelessness. How did you get out of it? How did you get into it if you want to share that? In your opinion, what do we do to permanently counter this, to permanently end homelessness in this country? Drop a comment. Let me know what you think. But yeah, guys, as always, great hanging out with you. And I love you very much. And I'll speak to you again soon. Bye. Know anything